Radhe Radhe everyone. Okay, Radhe Radhe everyone. We're going to continue our study on the chapter 6, Dhyan Yoga of Bhagavad Gita. Today we are going to cover verse 6.26 and 6.27. So before that, let's do the invocation. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. All right. So, just recaps, some of the recaps that some of the words that we've done earlier, which is 6.22, 23, 24, and 25. So, what all we have discussed. One second. Okay, somehow my screen is not okay. So having 6.22 says that. So okay. So what in short, okay, till 6.21, what we have covered is a true yogi and sannyasi are basically same if they can renounce their results. The whatever activity they are doing, if they can renounce their attachment to the results, then the yogi and um, a sannyasi, a grahastha who's striving to become a yogi, and a sannyasi, they're basically same. They are both doing any actions, any and every actions are coming from selflessness. So then he says that initially the path is karma yoga. So even in Bhagavad Gita, why karma yoga is mentioned first is because uh, the process for a yogi or for a sannyasi also, the path is for basically a yogi, because Arjun is asking the difference and all. So Krishna is asking him to become a karma yogi. So karma yogi means he's doing actions, but his mind is attached to Bhagwan, and the actions are selfless. So from there, from yoga aruruksha to arudha, means from the beginner stage, when a person is doing karma yoga, his mind is becoming selfless. Then from there, it becomes established. So that is arudha. Then we discussed on different types of, how we can um, do meditation and all of that. So here, finally reaching a state where our mind is one pointed. From that one pointed state, we achieve samadhi. So then from samadhi, we achieve the bliss. So this verse 6.22 is saying that having attained that state, which is the samadhi and the blissful state, one does not regard any other state to be superior than that. And being thus established, they are not disturbed by even the greatest sorrow. So that is the 6.22. And 6.23 is saying that in he will not be disturbed by even the greatest sorrow, right? And he will actually achieve the disconnection from suffering. So right now our state is we are in union with suffering. That is, we are in union with everything that is happening outside, all material things, and we suffer. We have desires. If we get it, okay, we get become greedy. If we don't, we become upset. So that is our union with suffering right now. So when we achieve that yoga, that state where in samadhi, um, we achieve that bliss, that union with Bhagwan, then we achieve this connection from union with suffering. And this yoga must be practiced with determination and unwavering mind. So this is what we have discussed in the previous two, um, 6.22 and 23. Then comes that how do we achieve that. So basically from now onwards, all will be the, the practical aspects of how that things, yeah, we can achieve that state. So he's saying that one should completely renounce all desires arising from mental imagination and fully restrain the senses through the intellect. So here we basically have to make our intellect so powerful, because mind gets all the information, always ask whether we should do it or not, and most often the mind is overpowering the intellect. So it is our duty to empower the intellect with absolute the knowledge of the self, the correct knowledge by which the intellect can tell the mind and control it. So he's saying that we have to one should completely learn to renounce all desires that is coming from mental imagination and fully restrain the senses through the intellect. And they are saying that sankalpas means if we look at anything, our tendencies is to attach. So sankalpa is we are imagining first to whether we like that object or whatever. First we see it and then we develop a desire. So in this verse actually saying this mental imagination, the sankalpa causes desire, and which is actually causing bondage to us, and we have to control our senses by a purified intellect. Next verse is gradual. This process of studying the intellect with right knowledge and firm determination, one should fix the mind on the self. So we have enough information, our intellect is having the right knowledge, and it is full of firm determination that okay, I'm going to do this. Then slowly and steadily we will learn how to fix our mind on the self, which is the Paramatma, or our true self. And when that happens, this mind will not wander and will not think of anything else. This process is gradual, requires patience and constant practice, and we have to repeatedly bring back this whole the mind to the self. And that is what we are going to discuss in next verse, which is 6.26 and 6.27. So I'll just read the verse and then some you can volunteer. So यतो यतो निश्चलति मनश्चञ्चलमस्थिरं ततस्ततो नियम्यैतद् आत्मन्य एव वशं नयेत्. Yes, Sandhya.
Yeah. Radhe Radhe.
Adati.
यतो यतो निश्चलति मनः चञ्चलम् अस्थिरं ततः ततो नियम्य ऐतद् आत्मन्य एव वशं नयेत्. I think breaks
Thank
are
you.
different, so yeah.
Thank you. So, do we have anyone else? Yes, Shri Ramya ji.
राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe.
यतो यतो निश्चलति मनश्चञ्चलमास्थिरं ततस्ततो नियम्यैत्याद् आत्मनि एव वासं नयेत्. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll just read the translation. It says that from whichever direction the restless and unsteady mind wanders to its various sense objects. Okay, so mind is getting distracted by sense objects. So it should be restrained and brought back firmly within the self alone. So, so this is the translation, and let's see the explanation. So the mind, it's a natural, very natural state of the mind is to become restless and unstable, and it constantly runs towards the external objects. And this external running towards the external objects is due to our past impressions and attachments. However, instead of becoming frustrated or discouraged, a seeker should patiently and repeatedly bring the mind back to the self whenever it wanders. And for that also we need to have this knowledge of the self. That is why in the previous verse we are saying that we have to make our intellect very strong, and then we have to go and deal with the mind. It cannot do otherwise, because if we don't follow the right process, the right outcome will not come. So this is the practice of true meditation, which is not fighting the mind but gently guiding it back towards the self. And this verse emphasizes persistent effort in meditation. Why this word meditation is being used is because we are actually meditation is what they are focusing, and focusing on what we are focusing on the activities of our mind. And in order to focus on the activities of the mind, we have to separate ourselves from the mind. So then we can persist, we can do that. We can recognize our flaws and then try to bring deal with one thing at a time. And it's very important, don't make a list of things that you want to correct. just take one thing, and with that one thing, when we start working on it, we'll notice that everything else also comes and falls in place. So the nature of mind is to waver, but through discipline or focus, it can be trained to remain steady in the self. So this is a complete training process. And over time, this leads to deep peace and realization of one's divine nature. So in Bhagavad Gita is divided into three sections, Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So Karma Yoga is always the starting stage where we are learning to control our mind and impulses and make it selfless. Then Gyan Yoga is a direct path where if we if we make our intellect very very pure, we can control our mind and we can realize Brahman. And Bhakti Yoga is another path by which probably the person does not have much of knowledge, but he has enough bhakti that knowledge will follow at a later time, um, or yeah, the knowledge will follow, but with bhakti that person is purifying all, and he's making everything else secondary. All the other attachments, all the other tendencies, impressions, attachments are all secondary. This is the primary one, this bhakti, and that is how the person achieves God realization. So even by Gyan Marg or Bhakti Marg, the God realization is same. It is just two different paths. That's why when even in the future Arjuna will ask, which path one should follow, Gyan or Bhakti, Krishna says that it is easier to, put your mind in one form and go for Bhakti than the Aham Brahmasmi, where you have to see everything as God. So over time, this leads to deep peace and realization of one's divine nature. This particular chapter deals with Brahman realization through Gyan Marg. So we'll be basically discussing, this is a direct path. So next is key teachings from this verse that I'll be covering is, I've divided it into restless and unsteady mind wandering, and it should be restrained, and how it should remain in steady in the self. And then two practical aspects is how we can bring this mind back, and how japa can help us to get that steadiness. So let's deal with each and every one. So first is restless and unsteady mind. Here we are saying that mind is compared with a horse, that is, it's like an untrained horse running in all directions, and only through steady effort and calm guidance it can be tamed and directed towards peace. So we have to understand that we are talking about evolution of consciousness, and consciousness has taken various forms in us. It is not just the the manifestations that we have different sheets, seven sheets we have. Let's take few of them that we know, which is, we can say, body. If even if we what is the elevation of consciousness in the body level? If we see from one single cell, we have become this whole, adult or whole person, right? So there is an elevate, the multiplication of cells is happening. Likewise, from the very minute unicellular organism, we have become this elevated human being. So there is an elevation in the just the body, the consciousness, which has manifested as a body, has made us human right now. And second manifestation is the mind. So there is an elevation in the mind also that is happening. There is an elevation. Mind has the four things. So the elevation is happening in different areas of the mind, which is the chitta, which the more experiences we have, the more knowledge we will have, the more so there is memories there, that is increasing, their impressions are increasing, there is different identities. The more we deal with the world, different identities we have to get in order to interact with different people, so or anything in nature. So that identity is also a kind of manifestation. So next is intellect, whatever intellectual knowledge we have, material wise or spiritual, and mind, which is made up of our emotions. So here we're saying that because we are coming from an animal nature, we will and our past tendencies are, countless. So because of that, it is very natural for our senses, for our body, for our mind to like something, to dislike something. So we'll naturally move towards that, these things, that attract our senses or repulse our senses. So we can go, we can not only go towards, we can get away also. So this instability creates mental exhaustion and lack of clarity, whether I should go for it or not go for it, because probably some lifetimes we must have done this, some lifetime we must not have done that, whatever it is. So a wandering mind weakens focus. So right now, this spirituality demands focus. So we have to train our mind, because it's like a monkey mind. And so wandering mind weakens focus and drains inner energy, making it difficult to experience deep peace. So and this restlessness is basically coming from within, because it is our past tendencies that is coming. So we must gently and but firmly guide it to a stable center. So all the facets has to be improved in order to get that full control of our emotions. Basically, our emotions are driving us right now. So, example is, you sit down to complete an important task, but within moments, our thoughts jump to unrelated ideas, past conversations, future plans. So, this is what this particular section, that is, it naturally runs towards sense objects and distractions. This section of the shloka covers. And then next is, it should be restrained and brought back firmly. So, this firmness should be there. We should not allow, because if we are seeking this elevation in consciousness of which is the manifestation called mind, if we want that elevation, then we have to, with the strong intellect which is full of right knowledge, we have to learn, and we have to bring it back firmly. So here the effort should be deliberate and conscious redirection whenever the mind is, it's trace. And we start slowly and steadily. It's not just like today I have made this effort, I have put 7 hours or 5 hours or 3 hours of constant redirection, but tomorrow, it should listen to me. It does not work like, we should start probably by 5-10 minutes, and slowly and steadily it will come under our control. So it the and we cannot leave our mind on its own. It will not stabilize on its own without guidance. It follows the strongest pull of emotions, habits, or past conditioning. So mind will always, because that is what we have, that's our sanskar, that's what we've been doing, and it will always follow that. So if we develop the sanskar of knowledge, then the sooner or later, that is the path that we are going to take. If we have sanskar of bhakti, that is what we are going to, our mind will naturally take that way. So we should not try to go against the flow, but if the flow is against our elevation, then we have to train it back and bring it back firmly. So just as a so firmness is does not mean suppression, that oh, I'm not going to think about this, I'm not going to do this. It's not. It is just that it is so more about the redirection. I will cover in the last 2 points. So it means redirecting the mind with determination and inner discipline, ensuring it does not become scattered again. So um, like that. So it's a process. And just as a wanderer needs a guide to return home, the mind needs consistent effort to remain centered in awareness. So previous was talking about how mind wanders, and this one is talking about how this wandering mind should be brought back firmly. And the example is, you're walking and then you get distracted, and then again, now that you've understood, oh, I'm going the different direction, I'm coming back to my original path. So an image that I've included is, the mind is like a flock of sheep. The constant thoughts are going into, it can go anywhere, but then a wise shepherd, wise means we have to have that knowledge. Our intellect should have the right knowledge. Excuse me. So a wise shepherd ensures they return to the right path, keeping them from getting lost. So it is very important that this elevation happens in all facets of our mind. And next is Now, once we have learned that mind is wandering, and now we are bringing this redirection, this because of this redirection, the mind should get firmly established in the self alone. That is where bhakti is even important in the Gyan Marg. So we the self, the mind will um, move away from all the other external distractions, and it needs attachment to something, and that slowly and steadily it will get established and it will get attached to the self. So this it says that a truly steady mind is not just free from distractions but remains anchored in the self at all times. So once we have achieved this redirection and we have achieved this anchoring, then this mind will not get distracted, and it will become not just free from distractions, it becomes anchored in the self also. And um, which self? The self that is all the scriptures, everything is pointing towards. And without distraction, we get that establishment in the self. So unlike a restrained mind that still requires effort to return, a steady mind naturally rests in awareness and unaffected by external pulls, then it will not distract. If at that stage we tell the mind anything, to get some information, it will bring it for us. To focus on something, it will do it. It will actually basically become the tool that it is meant to be. Just like we can control our hands. The hand is not jumping around on moving around on its own, which our mind is right now doing. But with this process, the just like the body is a tool, the mind also becomes a tool. So the state is not temporary, and it is the culmination of repeated practice where the mind no longer seeks external validation. And just as a mountain stands unmoved despite changing winds, a mind steady in the self remains peaceful in all situations. It is established, it will not waver, it will not get afraid, it will just if you want it to become silent, it will become silent also. So example is you reach a deep state of meditation where thoughts no longer distract you. You're aware but not restless, fully absorbed in inner stillness. This effortless stability is the result of true steadiness in the self, and that is when you can actually say that we have realized the highest consciousness, highest manifestation of our mind, which is making it as our tool, rather than right now we are dancing in its tune. So, a deep rooted tree in a storm is an example. A tree does not sway or break despite strong winds, symbolizing a mind firmly rooted in the self, unaffected by external forces. So, next is the practical aspect of how we can do this. So, this actually we've discussed even in the last class. Something that even I have practiced is the it is instead of forcing thoughts away, learn to see the higher presence in everything, guiding the mind towards unity rather than fragmentation. So this verse actually emphasizes drawing the mind inward, and one effective way is to see the divine spark in everything, in all that. So if we um, again, we have a body, so if we think that we lack something, or our mind tends to say that, oh, you might have this flaw or that flaw, and look at the other person or something like that, then you first thing that you have to do is look at yourself in a mirror, and pray to yourself and see God in yourself, in that image. This is the image, this is manifestation of God right now in front of you. That next is mind also, you can do that. This constant, if something is bothering you constantly, this person has said that, that person has said that, this I have practiced. I've just closed my hands and prayed and accepted, and it immediately goes. And it and when and it was a practice again, but it was a wonderful thing, because I think somewhere we were not acknowledging it, and our actions were not right. That's why the thoughts were manifesting in that way, or whatever, for whatever reason. And by acknowledging it, by praying to it and acknowledging it as a divine presence, it actually helps in removal. Then he says that when the mind wanders, gently redirect it towards the awareness that all things originate from the supreme reality. Same, you can do it with anything in life, any situation also. So this approach replaces harsh self-criticism with sense of reverence, making the process of returning the mind more peaceful. And an example is if a worry pops up uh, in a work or relationship, remember that each challenge can be part of greater plan. We don't know why things happen, and it's just all are happening, and it's a divine leela, it's a play. Sometimes people ask, why have God designed us? Some people are suffering, some people are. It's not. It's just a leela, and that is how we have to see everything, and that will actually help us calm our mind. And so the example is a river. I mean, visually aid that I've used is a river flowing towards the ocean. So water continually seeks the ocean. Like that, when you train your mind to see divine in all things, it naturally flows towards the inner peace. So this is what we can take as a practice that we can use. And if we simultaneously associate one thought or any one thing, you have to take and immediately attach it to, if I think about this, I will also think about Bhagwan. If we keep doing that, a time will come where that thought and Bhagwan merges, and then only Bhagwan remains, and then the thought vanishes. It happens. Next is japa, the anchor of a steady mind. So repeating a sacred name, what it can do. So this is also like what I've mentioned earlier. But here we are actually sitting and making a constant an effort, and for that duration, then when we are doing the japa, our mind becomes tranquil, and slowly and steadily the japa becomes a natural process, and it happens within us. So that is the advanced level of japa. But if you practice this or the other thing, we say that a person thinks about 60,000 thoughts in a day. It can be a same thought, some of them can be the same and just getting repeated. So you can just associate the more whatever you're thinking about from God with the name of God. Then also it's kind of a japa only. But then japa, what it does is, by filling mental space with holy name of phrase, you reduce idle thoughts and draw close and you go closer to the divine. And sincere repetition rather than robotic chanting makes this practice deeply calming and uplifting. And if you catch yourself spiraling into worries, gently pause and repeat a mantra or name. This shifts your mind from tension to a more soothing rhythm. So it's like um a choppy water is our mental agitation. So the anchor, which is the japa, keeps the boat from drifting away. So rather than our mind taking us away, if we are able to consciously take Bhagwan's name at that time or chant, it will actually calm ourselves. So japa works like that anchor, ensuring the mind remains rooted in peace. So this actually finishes the 6.26. So next, let's move towards 6.27. I'll just read it. प्रशान्तमनसं ह्येनं योगिनं सुखमुत्तमम् उपैति शान्तराजसं ब्रह्मभूतमकल्मषम्. Actually, I didn't ask if anybody has any questions in the previous words. If not, then Sandhya, you can go ahead.
Thank you.
Radha.
प्रशान्तमनसं येनं योगिनं सुखमुत्तमम् उपैति शान्तरजसं ब्रह्मभूतं कल्मषम्.
Thank you, Sandhya. I think one more person is there. Someone else also raised. Yes, Sri Ramya ji.
Thanks,
Radhe,
Radhe Radhe. Prashanta manasam hinam yoginam sukham uttamam upeti shanta rajasam brahma bhutam akalmasham. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharma ji. So let's discuss this shloka. The translation says that the yogi whose mind is completely tranquil. So in the previous verse, what we were discussing was the nature of our mind being, wandering, and then bringing it, redirecting it, and then bringing it to the self. Um, so these were the aspects that we have learned, and then practical aspects. So once we have constantly brought and we have rooted it into the self, what happens? So that is what we are discussing in this shloka. The yogi whose mind is completely tranquil, that means he has rooted himself, the mind is rooted in the self. So it has become a tool. So it is very peaceful. So such a person who's who has subdued his passions. So his passions, everything, the emotions are at peace. Who's free from sin. So I'll discuss what is sin. And who is established in the realization of Brahman, which is the direct path we have realized our true nature through this path of meditation and samadhi and all of that. So that person, he will attain the highest bliss. So this is the translation. So let's read the explanation. When the mind becomes completely calm and purified, free from restlessness and worldly desires, which is, it's all talking about worldly desires. So now it is not doing anything on its own. Then at that stage, the yogi experiences supreme bliss. And this peace arises because the influences of rajas has been subdued, which is passion and restlessness. So rajas actually makes us achieve something or go behind someone, or it always makes us action oriented. So that influence of rajas has been subdued. Um, when we practice this mind, redirecting and practicing it to bring it back to the self, this rajas influence of rajas has been subdued, which is also, if you remember the previous verse, where the attachment, and of our mind to something, and then the development of desire, which is again passion, that gets subdued, and this individual is established in oneness with the absolute Brahman. He is not identified with anything. He becomes established in that his true nature. A purified mind is free from sins and impurities. So, what is the sin? So, sin is anything that we are identifying with other than the self is actually a sin. And why is it a sin? Because if, okay, identities are not bad, but if that identity is being utilized for sense pleasures and achievement, which is selfishness, and which is not coming on like a prarabdha or on its own accord, we are going towards and behind something, then it is always a state of restlessness, and that is why it is called sin and impurity of the mind. But if a person is established, he it's not that he's not going to run behind the desire. He will do the everything with absolute clarity, and he will do everything with the full focus that it needs to, and his mind will not stand in the way, and he will not be agitated by whether that person has achieved something because of his efforts or not. But he will become more process oriented than result oriented. So that is why he's saying that the purified mind is free from sins and impurities. So he will not have any restlessness, and is not disturbed by external situations or inner turmoils. And in this state, the highest happiness naturally arises, because we are Sachidanand. It is our real nature. So highest happiness naturally arises, and not from external objects, but from within. So it is, again, if you remember, we've talked about Vishyananda. So Vishyananda is what we always think, that we are getting something because we are getting happiness because we have achieved something. It is not true. If that thing was not existing, we were already peaceful. But because we have seen that, our mind has become agitated, and when we get that, our mind again comes back to that stable state. And we say that, oh, we received that, that is why we've become happy. happy. It's not that. We have achieved our original state of happiness, and that is why we have become happy. So this highest happiness naturally arises not from external objects but from within, because of the because this desires and these things have been subdued. So this bliss is beyond ordinary pleasure and pain, and as it is the joy of the self-realization and union with the divine. So key teachings from this verses is there are certain points which is calm mind. So I've so what is calm mind, and how we can uh, bring our passions, the freedom from sin and establishment realization of Brahman. So a calm mind leads to tranquility. So when the mind is serene and not racing with thoughts or worries, deeper happiness naturally shines through. So here, if we see, if this is God, and if there is clarity in the mind, then we can actually, it's like there is a lens, there is a mirror in front of us, and that mirror is not clean, or it is clouded. So there is a story where a woman were always used to look outside her window, and she will talk constantly negative about the neighbor, how their house is so dirty, their clothes are so dirty, they don't take bath, all sorts of things. And one day her husband cleaned the mirror, and she started saying, oh my god, everything is so clean, what happened, wow, have they changed? And then the husband says, no, I've just cleaned the window. So like that, when we actually remove all the impurities from the mind, our true nature gets it shines through. So this calmness isn't just a surface level relaxation, it's a stable state that arises when the mind is free from constant turbulence. Some teachers say that once the mind becomes still, we experience joy far greater than anything our senses can offer. We'll not even go behind such things. And then the example is a quiet lake. So yeah, so and you decide to sit quietly for a few minutes, focusing on your breath. After initial restlessness fades, you feel a gentle peace. This simple calm can grow into profound bliss if maintained regularly. So this is the calm that we are talking about in this. That is, once we establish ourselves in the self, this is the calm where we can actually experience our true nature, like, which is Sachidanand. And next is the passions and restlessness must be subdued. So whose passions are at peace, such a yogi whose passions are at peace. So this verse emphasizes that passions like greed, anger, envy, they actually keep us in the restless state. And by observing and slowly transforming these tendencies, the mind settles down and peace emerges. So um, some spiritual practices is controlled breathing, prayer, mindful reflection to gradually reduce the unhelpful passions. So we've discussed that earlier. So if you find yourself getting irritated often, try pausing before reacting. Some small gaps in your responses help you understand the emotion without letting it overpower you. So um, this is a, you can imagine that big waves are which are arising in you, as passion, some anger issue or anything that churn the ocean of your mind. Once the storm calms, the water becomes still. That stillness reveals the vast calm depths below. So like that, we should the yogi uh, who has subdued his senses and who's achieved this tranquility, and who is established, will attain the highest bliss. So now, what is the um, freedom from the sin? So we've already talked about it. It's basically impurities. Mind is freed from impurities, just desires, fears, and attachments. It naturally becomes tranquil, and this purity is not just about avoiding wrong actions, but about cleansing the subtle impressions. So we have to see that one thing, or that bothers us, and start working on it, and that causes which causes mental disturbances. A mind free from past burdens and inner conflicts is effortlessly peaceful. So this is another state of that yogi who is not having any identities, as and no, not attached. Even if you're attached to cricket, you can say, oh, I'm a cricket lover, so that is an identity. So that is what you're saying, that a mind free from all these inner conflicts, burdens, is effortlessly peaceful. Don't identify, enjoy, but don't identify. Then example is, imagine a pot of muddy water. If left undisturbed, the dirt settles and the water becomes clear. Similarly, when unnecessary thoughts and emotions settle, the mind reflects pure joy and clarity. And only when we are able to become all this that we are talking about, we can go to the next stage, which is achieving a union with Brahman. So, so a mirror reflects light without distortion, just as a purified mind reflects inner bliss. So, only when your mind is clear, you can see God. Next is, and you can see your true self. So next is union with Brahman brings eternal happiness. So such a yogi becomes established in realization of Brahman. So what is that realization? So and how do you feel when you reach that stage? So a person established in Brahman realization, a state, he achieves a state beyond dualities. So pleasure, beyond pleasure, pain, success and failure, because he knows that it is all a happening and also or a part of divine plan. So unlike temporary peace, this realization of dualities will not affect you is unshakable, because it arises from direct experience of the absolute. And when you directly experience it, you will realize that everything is Bhagwan only. So there is, you are also not there at that point. So then you will not feel anything as different, or you might do something for those people who are suffering, but you yourself will not get affected by them. So, such a being is not affected by worldly desires, fears, or disturbances. They live in a state of natural bliss and contentment. Realization of Brahman does not mean withdrawal from life, but seeing divinity in everything, leading to a deep sense of unity with all existence. So, even in yesterday's class, Bhagavatam, we were seeing how that oneness is there. And how Krishna spreads across everything. And example is, imagine someone who was once swayed by emotions and desires, but after deep contemplation, they realize their inner nature, and they realize that they don't need anything. They don't have to go do a sankalpa, go behind anything. They are already complete, because they become one with everything. And this shift brings unshakable inner peace. No external event can disturb their tranquility. An example is like this vast sky. Even if clouds are going, sky is not doing anything. It's just there and experiencing everything. Next is effort and detachment. Um, so this is the abhyasa and vairagya. So we have, it's our consistent effort. Okay, just like this farmer is actually planting a seed and letting the rain nourish them. So the farmer's effort in plowing and planting represents abhyasa, practice. Like that, we are working on our body to make it sit still in some place, working on our mind, recognizing our impressions, changing it, and putting knowledge so that we can control this mind. So all this will come under the practice, which is abhyasa. While waiting for the rain, symbolizes vairagya, detachment. I'm not attached. Whatever I'm doing at this moment, and hoping probably that that rain will come, that grace will come and help me more in my path, but I'm not attached to the result. So just as a farmer must work diligently but also trust the process, a seeker must practice consistently while letting go of attachment to result. Both are essential for spiritual growth, which is practice and detachment. So what is practice? So Bhagavad Gita teaches that true realizations comes through both abhyasa and vairagya. Constant effort to bring the mind back to the self is essential. You have to constantly say, "My it will not happen on its own." It is elevation of consciousness, and effort is required. Just like how we study, from kindergarten to college level and beyond. So it's a constant process. And Vairagya is, at the same time, one must cultivate disinterest in temporary worldly pleasures. And if attachment remains, the mind keeps wandering despite effort. So we have to become, uh, you know, we have to sever ourselves from the outcomes, and we should not do something for to gain something. Just as a bird needs two wings, a seeker needs both effort, that is abhyas, and vairagya to attain the lasting inner peace. An example is, musician practices daily but avoids distractions and unnecessary desires for external validation, which is vairagya. Similarly, a yogi must diligently train the mind by letting go of attachment to the results. So that ends my presentation on these two shlokas, and thank you for the opportunity. I'll finish with these two quotes that I found. Is the mind acts like an enemy for those who do not control it, because it will always go based on our past samskars, and we don't know what they were. We can do minor damage to lot of major damage if we just let it go on its own. So we have to practice my this redirection with right knowledge. Even if we are not doing anything to the mind, if right knowledge is being sent to it and poured into it, this process of redirection naturally happens. Next is, arise, slay thy enemies, enjoy a prosperous kingdom. So this both was mentioned by Lord Krishna. That's what I saw. So thank you, Radhe Radhe. If anybody has any question.
Thank you, Pratyushadi. And
Okay.
yeah, once again, Radhe Radhe. And actually, I just wanted to mention this, that like one thing that has really helped me understand this is also like example of, like, say, internet. It's a tool we can misuse or we can take like really good advantage of, right? Like we are connecting with each other and doing satsang also via the same tool. So misuse or use, same with our mind, as you said. So yeah. Okay. So with that, should I move to the, yeah, I'll
Next
move to
section, yes.
the Bhakcharit. I mean, I should mention this, that I really love the organization of your slides and the structure of it, like throughout. It was very, very well.
I took your input and tried to make it more simple.
It's very nice. Thank you. Okay. So today we are going to learn about a saint whose name we knew earlier as well. But it's actually a different saint, a different devotee. But anybody remembers we have learned about Ramdas ji, but a different Ramdas ji. Dhruil is nodding his head. Do you want to just quickly say something?
Radhe Radhe. I think it was Ramdas Chamkarji, like the
Perfect. Yeah, the
mentioned
cobbler.
gobbler. Yeah.
Yeah, like you want to quickly say something about him if you remember?
Yeah. I think he had, was it Shaligram? Uh,
Uh-huh, right.
mm,
And
yeah.
what was that dialogue? That was like our, I think I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the exact thing, but मैं जैसा मैं हूँ मैं प्रभु का हूँ. That is.
Perfect. Yeah, मैं जैसो तैसो तेरो. Yeah, Pratyusha be saying from there.
Yeah, मैं जैसो तैसो तेरो.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you, guys. I mean, it's great that we remember the previous devotees as well. And, you know, we keep our lessons with us. So with that, let's now learn about another Ramdas ji. And he is from Dakor. I'll show you where Dakor is. And he is a devotee who actually stole Lord Krishna or Ranchod. Ranchod, we know, right? That's one of the names for Lord Krishna. So he stole Lord Ranchod ji and brought him home. So let's move further. So actually, this is a place called Dakor, and this is Dwarka. So in Dwarka, we had like the deity of Lord Ranchorji, installed. And this particular devotee, Ramdas ji, he used to live in Dakor. He was an old devotee, And we'll see why this is important for us to understand. And also, like, just remember, it's like 500 kilometers, and we are talking about old times, right? I mean, he wasn't taking a flight to go from here to here. So a devout man named Ramdas lived in a village of Dakor in Gujarat, and every Ekadashi he would travel to Dwarka to sing kirtans at Lord Ranchorji's temple all night, and then he will return next day. So this is a ritual that he was following in every Ekadashi. As he grew older, the Lord advised him to continue his devotion at home. However, he refused to heed this request, citing his unwavering love. So impressed by this devotion, Lord said, I cannot any longer bear the trouble you take to visit me. And I think we all can understand this is a trouble, a person kind of walking all the way from Dakot to Dwarka, right? Even at an old age. So Krishna being Krishna, and his reciprocation of love and grace is like unimaginable, right? So he was like, okay, if that is your decision that you cannot stop coming to me, let me come to your home because I cannot see you bearing the pain. So Krishna is the one who actually advised him to steal him. So let's see. So Krishna was all set and ready to go with Ramdas ji. So he actually, not just that, he said, how can you actually take me? How can you steal? So Krishna planned the robbery for himself. He said, bring a cart and I'll come with you. So Ramdas ji said, I am old. Your deity itself is heavy. How will I carry you? And temple is locked. How will I break the locks? All of this is like really complicated. So the Lord said, I will open the back window of the temple myself, and I'll make myself very light as a flower so that you can easily take me. You just do one thing, you bring the cart next time you come. So the next Ekadashi, Ramdas ji actually arrived with a bullock cart, and villagers and the priest were all surprised, like, why has he come? This is unusual. But then they thought ki maybe he's becoming aged, so that's why he traveled differently. Later at the night, Ramdas ji approached the temple's back window, which was already open as per Krishna's plan, and adorned in gold ornaments. He said, take me with you. So next. So Ramdas ji hesitated. Like, first of all, he was already scared that he was taking away Krishna from his temple. Next, he was also carrying so many gold ornaments. So he was like, at least leave your ornaments behind for the priest. And then Lord had anyway no attachment with the ornaments. So he left the ornaments behind and made himself feather light so that Ramdas ji could carry him into the cart and began the journey to Dakot. So next day, of course, priest discovered that Ranchorji was missing. And they also saw all the ornaments scattered around, back window open. So they could guess like, okay, there was one person who had come yesterday with a cart, so that Ramdas ji must have taken back. And so they basically they started following him, they caught him up. And then Ramdas ji, in the meanwhile, when he saw that all the priests are chasing me, and the actually priests were not just chasing alone. Now they were super angry. They were identifying a thief of their lord. So they wanted to beat him up and just, take the god back and punish this person. So Ramdas ji was asking Krishna that how should I deal with this? So so the Lord said that just put me in a nearby pond, hide me there. So Ramdas ji followed the instructions. However, when the priest arrived, they kind of had made up their mind that it is Ramdas ji who has stolen the Lord. So when Ramdas ji did not say anything upon interrogation, they ended up beating him with spears. Now here happened something really beautiful. I mean, painful but beautiful, which is this. So when they were interrogating and beating him up, there was a lot of blood that started coming from the pond. So whatever pain was given, whatever bruises were given to Ramdas ji were also there on the Lord. The Lord decided to take up each and every bruise that his devotee received. So that kind of shocked everyone. And then they met the Lord, the priest, and they begged him to return to the temple. The Lord simply said that I will not return to such cruel caretakers. I will stay with my devotee Ramdas. So, the priest argued that without you, our livelihood is impossible. So remember, focus on this term. So they were like, without you, we will not get our food. We will not get our livelihood, right? So Lord was like, okay, if that is the only concern, if that's what you want, then I can arrange for your livelihood by just providing you gold, which is equivalent to my weight. So this, and that my Ramdas will do. Now Ramdas ji heard this. He said, yeah, I have nothing. I'm old. I have no resources. How will I give the gold? But now my Lord has said it. So he will only have a solution for it, right? So he basically said that simply bring the nose ring, very small stud that his wife had. Just bring that. I will take care of everything else. So Ramdas ji, okay. So Ramdas ji, so there was a scale. On one side, Lord sat, and on the other side, this nose stud was kept. And then, the Lord Ranchor ji had the ability to become like a feather. So of course, he became even lighter than that nose stud. And he told the priest, see, I am giving you something which is even heavier. So my devotee Ramdas has got a big heart. So he's giving you even extra. So take it and enjoy. And at that point, of course, the priest said that, we are sorry, but please, this will not be able to help us and sustain, right? So then at that time, the Lord Ranchodji was very, very, I should have shown this picture. Yeah. So he was very, very particular that he wants to stay with Ramdas ji, but he then created his another form to be sent to Dwarka. So even now, he's actually in Dakor. And in Dakor, Ranchodji's deity has all the bandages. And every day, those bandages are replaced because those bruises, which are representing the love for the devotee, are there. So this is the conclusion of the story now. So power of devotion. The story demonstrates the power of devotion. This Lord endured Ramdas's wounds and rewarded his unwavering love by residing in Dakor. The village's name is said to derive from this event, as Ramdas stole the Lord like a bandit, which is called Dakat. Oh, this I did not read earlier, but yeah. So Dakor is from Dakat, right? To this day, Lord Ranchodji's deity in Dakor is adorned with a bandage commemorating the wounds he bore for his devotees. So that is the story of another super inspiring devotee, Ramdas ji. Hope we remember both the Ramdas ji. Both had unwavering devotion, and that's why they were like the favorite of Krishna, and Krishna wanted to just live with them, right? Yes, Shri Ramya ji.
Very nice story, Sandhya. But I was remembering of another Ramdas. Like he was also a cobbler Ramdas. Not the story which you said, but it went with this dialogue: "Man changa to katauti mein Ganga." So
That
this
was
makes
Ravi
me.
Das ji. That was Ravi
Uh,
Das, right?
sorry. Okay, I got the name wrong. Yeah, got it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. In fact, I think on Ravi Das Jayanti, we shared that story in the group. So
Yeah,
if anybody wants, they can go back and yeah, look at it. But
yeah,
yeah,
I got confused with the name. Sorry.
no, that's possible. Like, so yes, okay. It's 10 o'clock also, so we can close the call and see each other next weekend.
Thank you, Sandhya. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Thank you.
Bye.